Welcome to Psychologist Talks. On today's episode, I want to talk real briefly about the difference between solitude and isolation, because I think a lot of people come in asking about the difference between these two. Like, how do I self-appraise? And in essence, I think there's sometimes solitude that is confused as isolation, and vice versa, isolation that can be confused as solitude. So let's get down into business and talk about, hey, what is solitude? And by the way, it's a healthy thing. If you think solitude's an unhealthy thing, no. Human beings, as relational as we are, my whole relational psychodynamic approach is founded upon the idea that we are inherently relational creatures. That does not mean we need to, or it's healthy to be around people all the time. Solitude is the pursuit, an intentional, chosen path to disconnect from other people. And in doing so, if solitude is working, there's a sense of calm and peace. So it's not about a running away from, it is not a fear-based thing, it is not trying to seek safety, it is not about avoiding problems in our lives. It is about purposely, intentionally carving out time where we can just be alone in our own thoughts and our own being, or even just engaging in an activity in isolation, doing a puzzle, reading a book, whatever it might be. It's just us, and that's totally okay. If you're a big nature person and ever been out in nature, there's a good replication of this. If you're like, what is that feeling? Well, if you're out there in the woods and it's just a peaceful moment and nobody else is around, or if say you're with someone because you should be and keep yourself safe from predator animals, they're just not bugging you right now. You're at peace. There's something very centering about it. You can be more mindful. And that is especially important in today's day and age where there is just a mass volume of activity. It is so hard to disconnect from this constant flow of information and status updates and to-dos and all this kind of junk in the world. And solitude provides a respite from that. This is different than isolation. Isolation, if you just reverse everything I said, is essentially what it is, right? It is fear-based, it is safety-based, it is trying to avoid problems, it is moving away from something that is potentially dangerous. And that is not always a bad thing. Sometimes we need to isolate ourselves from really unhealthy environments, and that's okay. That's not a solitude that's seeking safety from a need-based, sort of a necessary mindset. But what I'm talking about is more in the unhealthy avoidant realm, where it's like I need to be alone and away from people. And, I'm lonely or I'm depressed or I'm frustrated. Or the really tricky one is sometimes people can start to feel entitled to that. It's like, I isolate because the world sucks and nobody deserves, people don't deserve my sort of presence because it's just going to be, shitty for me no matter what. I think what's really important, the final note I'll make, is that sometimes isolation can be confused as solitude because we become over familiar with isolation. Another sort of verbiage that people sometimes use is like, oh, I'm such an introvert. Remember, the introversion is just about I recharge my batteries alone. I don't recharge it with other people. But people who become isolated for too long begin to convince themselves that that is actually indeed their preference. They lose touch of and sight of what their relational needs are and what those relational needs can feel like in the real world. I'm not saying like everybody's actually a secret social butterfly here. All I'm saying is that when we get so disconnected from ourselves in relation to others, we can begin to confuse isolation with a dispositional way of operating, and that is a dangerous space to be in. So that's all I've got. I hope that's just kind of a helpful thing, if not a curious thing, or just validates what you already know about the difference between those two. But solitude is a very important thing. Do not confuse it with isolation. Do not tell yourself you're seeking solitude when in reality you're isolating yourself. But yeah, they're two very different and important constructs. Solitude, usually a little bit more on the healthy side. Isolation, be careful. It can be unhealthy for your psyche. As always, thank you for listening and watching, and stay curious.